The title pretty much says it all, but here are some more details. My boyfriend of 6 months and I have had a pretty cut and dry relationship up to this point. I've always been what some people would call quirky, so pranks are sort of my bread and butter. He, John, has expressed that he really likes this part of me, and I'm just happy to be with someone who can handle all of my zest, LOL. Sometimes I worry that he doesn't actually think I'm as funny as he says, but he always reassures me that this is not the case. One of the ways we really like to express our humor to each other is in the bedroom. For example, I love to do impressions of mostly Disney characters, such as the paperwork lady from Monsters, Inc. Haha. He sometimes does them too, but he's not that good at voices. So here's where I think I may have taken it too far. I recently bought a sewing machine to try and make cosplay costumes and stuff, but something dawned on me as I was messing around with it. This was the plan. We oftentimes sexy times with a habitual back rub massage sort of thing, and we switch off. And then we progress into French kissing, and then full-blown you-know-what. One very important fact to tell you is that John does in fact wear glasses, so I will usually make a point to take them off and put them on the table for safety. During this particular romp in the hay, I got a really funny idea about how to take his glasses off next time, and I couldn't stop laughing. He asked me what I was laughing at because he has some insecurity about his appearance, but I assured him that it was nothing like that. We had our fun and John went home, but all I could think about was this plan. So the next day I went to the fabric store and bought a bunch of skin-colored felt and wire framing and cotton and got to work creating a Muppet-style version of my boyfriend to put his glasses on next time we started getting dirty style. Honestly, the thing was looking pretty good, and I even found some clothes at Goodwill that were his style. I dressed the puppet in the clothes, hid them under my collection of Squishmallows that's in my room, and invited him over. To spare you all the explicit details, we did start kissing and taking clothes off and stuff, but my hands were shaking as I reached up to grab his glasses. Instead of putting it on my nightstand, I made a point to say something like, "I'm just gonna put these right here," as I stretched over to the Squishmallow that was covering the puppet boyfriend's head and put the glasses right over his felt eyes. He got confused, I think, and looked back to where I put the glasses and sat up, as a felt version of his face. Very easily identifiable, by the way. John has red hair and a mustache, so the glasses on top left little question of who this could be. He was silent for a second, then said, "Is that supposed to be me?" as I was laughing. I said something like, "Do you like it?" as I took it out of the Squishmallow pile and revealed the entirety of Muppet John. "Oh, did you make that?" he asked, and I stood it up off the bed and asked him to stand next to it. "See? It's just like you, basically," I said, but he still wasn't laughing that much. I think he saw that the Muppet ended up being just a little bit taller than him. He's 5'7" and probably insecure about that. The Muppet ended up accidentally being a little taller than him, around 6'1" based on seeing them side by side. I noticed his disappointment and did a tried-and-true Disney impression to make him feel better. In my best goofy impression, I said, "Well, looks like we should call him Big John Hayuk." John just took the glasses off of Big John and let him fall to the floor, and put the glasses on the nightstand and sat on the bed for a while, but we eventually went to Sin City, but it was a lot more quiet than usual. He left after that, even though we were planning on having a sleepover. He said he wasn't feeling good. I texted him goodnight and went to bed. So here's the ish. This morning I haven't gotten any good morning text, or any texts at all from him, even though he always sends me a good morning text. I'm worried that Big John was a step too far, and that normal John didn't think the joke was as funny as I did. I feel like he's just putting me in an uncomfortable position by not telling me how this made him really feel, even though I thought it was pretty funny. Is this salvageable? Or am I effed? Update. Not sure why mods deleted my last post, but so many people were asking for updates that I'll leave the original in comments. It's really funny to read back lol, but here's what's happened in the last week. So it's been a wild couple of days or so, and I've been honestly a little depressed at the negative reaction from everyone. After my BF John left after we did the no pants dance in front of the puppet, Big John, he didn't text me for like a day and a half. I was really starting to get worried and believe some of the comments that I was a serial killer. I was so sad that I didn't even want to look at the sewing machine to make my custom Disney ears with because it just reminded me of Big John. Speaking of Big John, I hung him in the closet so I didn't have to look at him. I was so ashamed. I was drawing when my phone buzzed and I saw it was finally John. All it said was, "Hey, can we talk?" I was super nervous and he came over to my place. It was awkward at first because it has been so long since we saw or talked to each other, and I honestly thought things were going to end, especially after reading all the comments. However, he apologized for his behavior and told me something that cleared things up. So apparently his mom has been cheating on his dad with multiple younger men for years, and he and his dad just found this out the other day, the day I made Big John. He wasn't upset about Big John at all. I could tell he was still upset, and my instincts were saying I should do a Disney voice, but I considered the comments from the last post and decided just to say, "I'm sorry that happened to you. I hope your family is okay." Then, the most surprising part, he said, "I'm sorry to," and then, in his adorably not very good singing voice, sang, "Big John never bothered me anyway. I have something for him actually," and brought out one of his favorite slap bracelets that his mom got him as a kid. He pulled me into a hug, and we danced like we were Cinderella and Prince Charming boyfriend. He tried to dip me, but he's not very strong, so it created a funny moment where we kissed, and then he led me to my royal suite. And well, you can probably guess the rest. We got on the bed, and normal John had some smears on his glasses after kissing. He asked if there was anywhere, or anyone that he could put these on. I brought out Big John, and his hand fell off, but it was like a fairy tale romance when normal John placed the glasses on Big John's cute nose. So for now, it seems like a happy ending. DDD! I'm sorry I didn't post any pics with the original post, but after seeing John's reaction, I was so embarrassed, and some of the comments were so mean that I wanted to just destroy Big John and never think of him again. But there were some very kind people who sent me private messages that made me feel a lot better and proud of my quirkiness, which could very well be autism, as some commenters have stated, getting a test in a couple weeks. Also, stop thinking I would use Big John for the devil's tango. He is strictly an awesome way for normal John to have somewhere to put his glasses. So after all this time, I've gained the courage to share Big John with you all like you've asked. I was happy with how it turned out, and even happier that my beloved loved him as well. Here's some pics of Big John. Story 2. AIT for banning my wife from naming our baby after her dead best friend. Long story short, my 28M wife, 28F, is estranged from her family and has been since a teenager. She met Ava as in school, and they were inseparable with Ava, letting my wife stay over a lot, as well as providing a constant source of support. I met my wife at university. Unfortunately, Eva died suddenly a year into our relationship. I had met her a few times, and she was lovely. My wife was understandably devastated. 2 years ago, we married, and she took my last name, Brown. Our baby girl is due in the spring, and understandably, my wife wants to honor Eva in her name. This is something that she has said throughout the relationship. I was happy with the idea of honoring her, and we have discussed baby names throughout the relationship and pregnancy. The leading name we were tossing about was a place name that had significant memories to them. Yesterday she came up to me and said that she had a dream about Eva asking her to remember her by her name. She had some like this around the time Ava died, but none recently to my knowledge. And to memorialize her, our baby must be called Eva. I said absolutely no way. She said why not, and I reminded her of the historical figure, Eva Braun, pronounced Brown, wife of probably one of history's most evil figures, and reassured her that we will tell our kids about Aunt Eva, and she'll always be remembered. But my wife refused, saying it has to be her name. She says few will make the link to the historical character, and she won't be bullied at school. She said she had fell out with the place name, and a family member has had a baby recently with a similar name. Think Brooke to Brooklyn. I suggested things to do with Eva, such as her birthstone or honoring her through a middle name, or even names that had Eve, Ava in. Anything but Ava itself. She started crying and said that she won't name the baby anything else, and it's the ultimate way Eva can live on. I said it's a shitty situation, and if we had literally any other surname, we would, but I literally can't. Not only am I extremely morally opposed, I work in a field where if there was wind that I named my child Eva Brown, my work could be at risk. She's saying I'm making excuses and not supporting her as she is putting in a lot of effort to having this baby. This resulted in a fight, and now I am on the couch for the second night now. Some of our friends are saying I'm being dramatic, but my sister, the mother of Brooke, is telling me that if she continues to register the baby without her. To be honest, I'm leaning that way if she continues not to compromise. I'm really not sure what to do. Ida, for not wanting to name my baby Eva. Update. Hi all. It's been a while and I didn't realize I was still logged into this account. I didn't expect my Ata post to blow up so much, and I'd like to thank you all for your comments. They really gave me food for thought. Well, soon after posting, I called up Eva's sister, Rose, as my wife, Lou, is really close to her, and explained the situation. I know I shouldn't get people involved in marital matters, but Rose's opinion really matters to Lou, especially when Eva is involved. Rose agreed with me that naming a daughter Eva Brown would be harmful, and she mentioned something that we believed to be a game changer. One thing you must know about the late Eva, dear reader, was that she was a writer. She kept journals, which her sister held on to after her death. In one of these journals was a baby name list, where she gave 5 names for a girl and 5 names for a boy. Rose held on to these names when she was having children. One of her sons is named the top boy name, but she is done now and wants to give it to my wife. But we believed we have to introduce this carefully, so we launched a game plan. The next day, I sat down with Lou and said on no uncertain terms would our daughter be called Eva. Brown is the only surname we have, and Eva is not something I'd feel comfortable pairing with it. As I mentioned in comments, my wife is estranged from her family and often jokes that we got married so young, at 22, so she could get rid of her maiden name. She agreed that our child will take our married name, but continued to stress about forgetting Eva. I also mentioned that by naming a child Eva, you'd be pressuring that child to live on for dead Eva, and that's a big burden for young shoulders. My cousin was named after a dead relative, and my grandparents often compared him to that relative, and that's not something I want for my own child. That seemed to resonate, and she admitted that pregnancy was bringing up old feelings, as she and Eva always said that they'd be pregnant together. I suggested therapy, and she started therapy last week. I then talked about mine and Rose's conversation, and she was very interested. We agreed that it would be lovely giving Eva the opportunity to name a child, knowing it was something she was seemingly passionate about, and have narrowed it down between 2 of the 5 girl names. Turns out the girl had taste. Being able to discuss baby names and thinking about our daughter as her own person has been a blessing, and I can see my wife is on the mends. I think this will be the only update, and I can't wait to meet my daughter. Thank you all for your help.